Today's guest is Jen Sugermeyer, the founder and CEO of ATTA Cosmetics. She's a dynamic entrepreneur reshaping the beauty industry. With a keen eye for innovation, she has propelled ATTA Cosmetics to the forefront of redefining skincare by patenting an innovative skincare and makeup tool, the Jade Applicator. After a long career in IT leadership, Jen's passion for impact and wanting to help others live their best lives could only be obtained by building something transformative and unique. Jen is also a published author and has written 3 personal development books focusing on topics around boundaries, confidence, and hitting the reset button on our lives. Welcome to the Wild Party Podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the show, Jen. I am so excited to finally get to talk to you. So we met actually a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 2 months ago now, at the Vegan Women's Summit here in Los Angeles. And you were one of the vendors. And like I tell my friends, and I told you that day, when I saw your product, I literally couldn't wait to hand my money over to you. It was exactly what I had been looking for, this makeup skincare applicator. And I was like, how did you get into my head? I was like, oh my God. And I remember you had some people at the table and I was literally like, just like hawking over you, like trying to get in there to talk to you. And once we started talking, I felt like it was one of those conversations that could just go on for hours because we immediately had so much in common.
Yes, yes, we did. Yeah, no, it was great. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And for coming over and showing interest, because I know you shared that you use the product and that just makes my heart so warm. So thank you.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, we first started talking about the product and I don't even know how we got into the conversation, but okay. So just to let the audience know, of course, because I am a good interviewer, I have done a lot of research and reading about Jen. So I feel like I know her whole life story, but I want her to reveal that to you. So let me just say, first off, Jen and I have a lot in common because we both are now living beautiful, sober lives. And I love that not only you chose sobriety as I did, but then you also chose to write about it and share it in 3 amazing books. One of them which really focused on your road to recovery. So, I actually got sober 11 years ago, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. And I think you're kind of right around that time with me too. So tell me, how did you get on this sober journey?
Yeah, so I'm 6 years sober. So May 13th, 2018 was my aha moment. It took me 10 years to get sober. So this wasn't an overnight thing. This was trying 365 days a year for 10 years kind of thing. Um, and for me, my life was completely unmanageable. I think that's one way of looking. A lot of people, they reach out to me, men especially, because I think they trust me and probably bring a lot of masculine energy to things. And so I actually have a lot of men that reach out to me and they say, well, am I an alcoholic? And I'll tell people the same thing every time. This is the guidance that I give. And I'd like to share this with your audience. And it's not necessarily about alcohol. This is about anything that is in your life that maybe you are questioning, but is whatever you are doing, is whatever you are thinking, is whatever's happening in your life, does it serve you? Are you able to achieve the life that you want? Are you at your best when you do, when you think, when you are XYZ? And if the answer is no, then make a change. And so I think sometimes people get in the box of like, am I an alcoholic or not? How about let's not label? Like, don't worry about that. Are you living your best life? And I was not able to achieve my best life. So I was actually sitting on a couch back on May 13th, 2018 with the guy that I was dating. And he was supposed to be my road to happiness, right? I tried all these if-then statements. Like if I got a promotion, I'll be happy and I'll drinking, right? Well, he was one of those things. Like we were supposed to, he was supposed to, like, I was supposed to get sober and we were going to get married and all these things. Anyways, we were dated like 4 months. It wasn't that serious, but we sat down on the couch and he said the 7 words that changed my life. He said, Jen, you need to learn to love yourself. And in that moment, I saw the younger me that was disappointed in where I had ended up. And I saw a future me. And this is all very true. And I was in the exact same spot when I saw this older version of me because I knew nothing changes unless I change. Change doesn't happen by chance. And that's how this started. I just had something inside of me that I wanted more. I was so tired of feeling sick and tired. What I was doing wasn't serving me. And my life was getting really, really out of control. I was in and out of jails and hospitals and all kinds of just garbage in my life. So here we are, sober,
But
and I'm
through all
making up
that,
time.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I read that book and that you wrote, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that line because that was very powerful to me too. And it's funny though because you mentioned about being in and out of jails and all this, but the whole time you actually had an extremely successful
Yeah.
career in the IT industry.
Yes.
I mean, you were killing it from the outside. People would look at
Yeah.
you and be like, "Wow, she
100%.
really has the life.
Yeah.
She's an executive and she's 6 feet tall and she's beautiful and she's made it, right?"
Yeah.
And inside you're like secretly dying every night.
And I think there was a correlation between, like, let me show you all the things I've done with how much dysfunction there was. And the more it was falling apart, the more I was like pushing harder to have more things on my resume, right? I think I didn't know it then, but I believe that there was a correlation. And yeah, I mean, I had a top secret clearance. I was working in Afghanistan. I worked down at Department of State on $100 million contract. I was leading global teams. I mean, I was a female in IT, one of the only females in IT. I know you were in IT too, and we're trailblazers, and if you were in leadership, that was really like, wow, that was good for her, and that's always the space that I played in. But man, come 5 o'clock or come 6 o'clock or whatever, when I could leave the office, that was it for me. And it just kept getting worse and worse and more unmanageable. And I was extremely lonely, no matter how good my life looked on the outside. I was not living my best life. That was for sure. So yeah, so I am 6 years sober. May 13th, 2018 is my recovery. And um, it's interesting. And addiction is interesting because it sort of just creeps up on you. And it's not something that happens overnight. And so what I thought I was, using as something to celebrate or to lean on when I was having a bad day, all of a sudden that really took over my life. And it wasn't just this thing that I was doing in college or, it just all of a sudden had progressed to 7 days a week, 5 o'clock, going to 7-Eleven, getting a screw top on the wine because that was faster than the cork, and having to change up your 7-Eleven so that they don't know what's going on, and that becomes your life. And I'm an extremely social person, but I had become a recluse in my own house. And I knew my drinking wasn't normal. But I always considered, once I acknowledged I had a problem, that I was this high functioning alcoholic because I was doing so many things, leading teams and traveling. And, I had a house and a truck and all the things. But it had really taken over me. And I was frustrated because I knew that I had so much potential. And yet I was trapped in my own prison. And that was really hard for me, feeling like I should be, could be, would be, all these things. And yet I had these hooks that were just stuck in me. So it was 10 years for me to get sober. It didn't happen overnight, but I would never go
Yeah.
back. I
Yeah,
would never.
it's a slippery slope. I really found for me personally that just from working at home and because I didn't have accountability to anyone, that it just my drinking really crept up on me. And then
Yeah.
I remember distinctly having the thought one day, something happened in my day that I was not happy about. And I remember distinctly thinking like, I couldn't wait to have a drink. And instantly in my mind, I thought that is not the appropriate response.
Right.
And it wasn't like, it was like, oh, I was just drinking a normal amount. Like I knew I was drinking a lot. But at
Mhm.
that moment, I'm like, that's not a normal response.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, you know what? Let's see. Let's just get through today, have the drink I planned because I did drink that day. And I thought, and
Mhm.
then, I picked a date. I said at the specific date, don't drink them for 30 days.
Mhm.
And I stuck to that schedule. I hit the date. I got through 30 days. And then after 30 days, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could do 60 days. And then it
Mhm.
became, well, I wonder if I could do 6 months. And then it became like a game to me. I'm like, I wonder if I could do a year. And then after a
Mhm.
year, it was just like I kept gamifying it more, which for
Mhm.
me just really seemed to work for me. It's a reason why I run marathons because I love the game of like getting yourself
Yeah.
to the next mile.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of those things like you that I was like, God, I felt like I was high functioning, but I'm like, but I was only functioning because I was using that as my escape hatch. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person. And like you, had realized that I was switching up places that I was buying my liquor because I was starting to feel embarrassed that I was like,
Right.
they're going to be like, oh, here's this tiny girl walking in all the time buying gallons of vodka. Like, what is happening? And
Yeah.
of course, I'm
Yeah.
sure they did even notice me. Nobody's like that aware of anyone else. But in my mind, yeah, like you, I was like switching places up so I could be like secret. And, I was starting to get embarrassed about myself. So,
Totally. Totally.
um,
I had like the convenience store worker saying, "Oh, you're trying something new today." That's a bad sign, And I'm like, I need to change it up. Yeah, if they understand your patterns,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it's
That was the call out
embarrassing.
right there. But
Yeah.
like I said, I love when I meet people like you because I'm like, I'm on the same path as you. I totally get it. And I love that you're taking this journey with me. And I love also that you shared that journey with people because you went and did something amazing. You wrote a book to help other
Mm.
people to inspire them to reset their lives. And I did start reading it a couple of days ago and I
Oh,
really, really loved it
thank
because you
you.
gave such really clear, like you gave a clear story. Like you shared your story and then gave people clear, actionable advice about how they could, handle their lives differently without getting too preachy or doing like, you must do this. And I really love that
Right.
about the book. And then you went in to write two more books. So tell me about this whole author journey that you seem to take then as your IT, it seemed like your IT career had been pivoting, let's say that, and you can
Yeah.
share that story. And then
Yeah.
you were into, being a published author in these self-help books.
Yeah. Yeah. And recovery was a big part of it. I was still in corporate at the time. And I knew that it took me 1 year of just really working on myself. I told myself no dating, no changing jobs, don't move, nothing, nothing big, just work on myself. And I started documenting things and so that was my journey for the first year. And on my 1 year sobriety day is when I started writing Reset. And I really felt connected to the whole process. I've always enjoyed writing. It's not the first time that I've written, so it's always been a hobby in some capacity. But I just then had this passion that started within me, and I've always cared about people. I want to help them elevate their experience. And probably the reason we connected so quickly on sobriety and recovery is because I mean, I talk about it as openly as I'm extremely open about it, and I mention it very casually, and I do that intentionally because people might not be struggling with alcohol, but when you talk about something that is vulnerable, then you become more human. You are setting the expectation that it's okay to not have this picture perfect life, that people are real. I just think it brings an element. And there's nobody that can come at me and say, yeah, but you are an alcoholic. Yeah, but you're an addict. Yeah, but you were arrested because I already shared out there. You can't come at me with anything when I release it into the universe. I already did that. So there's this like release. So as I was writing Reset and I got that out into the world, it's almost like you're like, what else can I share? And when you put something down on paper, you become really clear on what your position is. So it's more than just you and I having a conversation or you thinking about something. When you're putting it on paper and then you publish it, And that doesn't mean that you can't change your mind,
Mhm.
but that becomes something that you have spent an immense amount of time on. You become a subject matter expert on that. And I think boundaries are so important to our happiness. I call it the yes no playbook to what you want in life. That's a little tagline. And then I wrote a book on confidence. And I think there's so many of us, it's called Confidence is Queen, because the queen's the most powerful player in the game of chess because she can make all the moves, and with confidence, so can you. And so many of us lack confidence. And I'm 6'1" and I wear those 4-inch heels. I will be 6'5" any given day. And I do that intentionally as well, just to show people it's okay to be who you are. And that's really what I stand on. Just be who you are. So
Yeah.
that was a lot, but there it is.
I also love that you call confidence an inside job.
It is. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there are things that we can do on the outside, right? Like, oh, I like this outfit. That looks cute. But it has to come from within you. And all of us have the back of the book says, as confidence, as cash is to king, confidence is to queen. But you have to have cash to be king. Confidence is already within you. And sometimes we don't realize that. We don't realize that just a minor little thing in your mind. One tip I'll tell you right now, you can eliminate failure. Like it's gone. It's a choice that you can make. I don't do anything that fails. Two things that come out of something that doesn't turn out the way that I think it's going to turn out. I learn a lesson, I course correct, or a combination of both. Maybe I was never supposed to be on that track. Or maybe I was supposed to learn something from that. And then you get better. But so many of us don't feel confident because we're like, oh, I had a failed marriage. I gained too much weight or whatever, right? Like we beat ourselves up. Like, that's okay. You put on a few pounds, go take them off. Go get back on the treadmill, or whatever. Or just accept who you are, right? Whatever that may be, learn something from it and just accept it and grow.
Yeah.
So it's within you and it's just a mindset. Everything is mindset.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a perfect segue into what you're doing now, which is ATTA
Mhm.
Cosmetics, because that stands for attitude, thoughts, and actions. And it's all about focusing on mindset and self-control, as you say. But I was really fascinated with the backstory of this because you actually launched this on Kickstarter. Is that right?
So I tried. So yes, I pulled it after a week after it went live. But yes, I started on Kickstarter.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Lessons learned. Probably wouldn't do that again. But yes.
Okay, well, I mean, that's great. People want to hear that because
Yeah.
sometimes we become aware of things like crowdfunding and you feel like, oh, I have to do it that way. And you know what? Sometimes that's not just the appropriate way for what you want to do. So
Yeah.
tell me then a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you come up with this idea for this? Where is it? This Jade applicator, which
Yeah.
I am personally obsessed with and use every day. As I said that day at the Women Vegan Summit, I literally couldn't wait to give you my money. I mean, I am your ideal customer, am I not? Like, I couldn't wait to pay you because I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. So
Yeah.
please tell me, where in your brain did you come up with this? And why did you decide to launch with this amazing product? And also, let's talk about the sustainability of this beautiful jade that you're using too. So, where did this
Yeah.
all come from?
I love it. I love it. So I'm gonna take my glasses off for this piece. So I was watching, so back in 2020, I got laid off from my corporate job and which was fine. And it was just such an amazing experience. It was the only day I had brought a backpack into work, honestly, in my entire life. And I got laid off that day. Like the universe just knew. And the backpack was enough to like put all my things in and walk out, because I wasn't going to walk out with a box. Like it was just everything always works out the way it's supposed to. But anyways, so as COVID was going on and my first book launched 5 days later, I was already planning my exit from corporate. It was just a matter of time. So I was staying there to put money in the bank and get things stable and all that. So as I was reinventing myself during COVID, which is kind of an interesting thing to do because it was an interesting time and networking was not what it normally is, and Zoom became a thing. And anyways, and just as I was trying to navigate all of that, I was writing books and I was doing speaking ish where I could find some stuff as much as I could through COVID. I turned on Instagram and I saw this lady doing her makeup with a spoon. And I don't remember her name. I remember she lived in California, but I was so intrigued. So I went and I grabbed a spoon and I put my makeup on with it. And I said, oh my gosh, this feels so amazing. And I absolutely loved it. And I did that for about a week. And I thought, I just bought my sister one of those jade roller things. I wonder if you could make a similar type device, but make it out of jade. And that's when I started 3D modeling and I ended up, with this prototype. It took 5 or 6 iterations to get it just right. This is the same size as your eyeliner. And so it's easy to travel around with. And yeah, so you can actually apply. So think jade roller, gua sha meets applicator. So you can put your skincare on with it. You can put your makeup on with it. I recommend start with skincare because skincare is easy. I use it for everything. My fingers no longer go on my face, but you can actually enhance your skin while you do your daily routine. So you don't need to have a jade roller. You don't need to have a gua sha. You can enhance your collagen production. You can drain your lymphatic system, and you can get a proper lymphatic drainage because of its ergonomical design. You can depuff under your eyes. You can enhance your circulation. This isn't going to soak up any product. So if you're using this brushes and sponges, you don't have to worry about waste anymore. If you use your fingers, you don't have to be like, when you're done using your product. And it's super easy to clean. So I never washed my brushes and my sponges. I would just reuse them.
Yeah.
And you are putting bacteria on your face. And I had a lot of skin issues. And now I'm really confident about my skin. So there's a lot packed
Yeah.
in here. So when you look at this, you wouldn't think, yeah, I would do that for this. All right.
I love
And
it.
there's things like if you know how to do like pressure points, like don't follow me. I'm not the one to do this, but and I can always tell. Yeah. Yeah. You just,
Yeah, if
it
you
does.
guys are watching the video version of this podcast right now, you will see both Jen and I using the Jade applicator on our face. Like, I mean, I'm just so obsessed with it. But I mean, one of the things that you and I really talked about that day at the Vegan Women's Summit was the fact that, there's so much waste in the beauty
Oh,
industry.
totally.
And I
Yeah.
really feel like YouTube was the worst thing to happen to the planet ever because it really exploded the beauty industry and everybody's creating all these products and not really thinking about the waste and the plastic and what
Totally.
was happening to all these sponges.
Yep.
So when I saw, your product and talked to you, and I'm like, oh my God, this is reusable.
Yep.
We're going to talk about where you source your, materials and everything, but I can use this for the rest of my life. I don't
Yeah.
have to buy, even though a sponge is $20. I was buying them all the time and then they
Yeah.
just go in the landfill. And I'm like, that's gross. Like, I literally can have this for the rest of my life and never buy another applicator. I
Yep.
love that.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy any more stuff. Like I was
No.
happy to buy this and this be the last thing I ever buy to put on my makeup as I sit here again on video just touching my face with it because it feels so good. I put mine in the refrigerator, you guys, just to let you know. So it's cool and wonderful all the time. But tell us then about what it takes to create a project, product like this. Because I know a lot of people will be listening to this, new entrepreneurs that are out there, and they're like, well, I have an idea, but how do I even start? How do I develop a prototype? Where do I go? How do I find materials? How do I make sure that they're sustainable or eco-friendly?
Yeah.
Because I know people, are really into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes you have to be a little scrappy and there's not one way of doing things, right? So um I am I am the investor in ATTA Cosmetics. I own this 100%. I own the patent so I'm the inventor, I'm the patent owner. I own the company 100%. And so if that's your model, which doesn't have to be, I know everybody's asked me, are you going to go on Shark Tank? All these things, which we can certainly talk about. But you have to look at what resources are available to you. Sometimes you have a good idea, but you're like, I don't really have a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money. I had a friend who said, hey, my boyfriend, because I was telling her, I said, I've got this idea. She said, my boyfriend actually just got this 3D modeler. He hasn't used it yet. Why don't you chat with him? And I don't have it in front of me. If you looked at this thing, you would say, what on God's green earth is that thing? It's horrendous, right? But that was he was just figuring out how to use it, but it conceptually gave me an idea. And so anyway, so that was evolution number one. I also then learned that you can do, at least where I live, they have a 3D model machine at the library. So instead of going and paying a company, which you can pay a company $50 per time you want to, print something, or $100 or whatever, I had help designing this. My boyfriend actually has the skill set to be able to help with that. And we just went to the library and we printed it out there. And it didn't always turn out perfectly. Sometimes the thing went a little wonky. They're not the best of the machines, right? But we did, 5 or 6 different iterations. And so it can be as simple as that. You do not have to be this high end. I have all the things. Go to your library, ask your friends, talk to, maybe your boyfriend, your girlfriend, somebody, a friend, that has some skills that can help you 3D model or doing something like that. But you probably have more resources around you than you realize to get started, and you don't need a budget necessarily.
Yeah, that's incredible that were able to go to the library and do 3D printing. I don't even know if my library offers that, but I mean, what a great free resource. Because you're right, a lot of times, especially as, an entrepreneur, you're like, how do people do it? If I don't have $100,000, is this even available to me? And you just answered the question. That is yes.
Yeah.
Also impressive that you did all the funding yourself. Smart in many ways. I don't think a lot of people really realize on things like Shark Tank what it means when they accept that money, that they're actually giving away a percentage of their company. And that's a strategy you really have to think about, like you said. So if the funding's all coming from you then, and you had to have these products created, how were you able then to make the connection to find the company that you wanted to work for? Because like I said, using a material like Jade, how were you able to make that connection to find a company that would you'd utilize a resource that you felt comfortable with. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And it's so it was an evolution. I wanted to be south of the border from the United States. Be great if I could be in the United States, but I thought south of the border is great. I did a lot of research myself. I also had companies that were out there sourcing. And I found that south of the border does a lot more artisanal products. Where I did not want to be was all the way on the other side of the world, like China, for example. And not necessarily because I don't trust the products, but I also know that we just went through COVID and there were all kinds of challenges that, just getting things, even on a boat all the way across just the supply chain was just a disaster. So I didn't want to go that route. And then politically, there's a lot of things going on between China and the US. And so I looked everywhere, but they've cornered the market. So right now, these are manufactured in China. But there is a plan. So we are looking, we are talking to there's actually a lot of jade that's in Guatemala. And so that's where we look to be. But some people just really have the market cornered. And so for these products, we're great. We're actually rolling out a skincare line, a medical grade skincare line. It's all vegan, cruelty free, paraben free. It is unbelievable. And that's all made here in the USA. So that's really where we want to be, is USA or south of the border for our products.
Awesome. So, yeah, I saw some of the beauty products on your website. I think I saw the under eye patches and everything. You mentioned they're cruelty free and vegan. Do you also live a vegan lifestyle?
So I don't. I would say that. So I wouldn't say that 100% no. But there are things about my lifestyle that are vegan that I follow, but it's not 100%, like not in the way that I eat and things like that. But I prefer my skincare. So nothing online is on the skincare side. So we're going to have serums and lotions, and nothing will be tested on animals. And I just think that a vegan lifestyle, having just being more conscientious about what we're putting in our body and on our skin is where we need to be as a society. I think, there's just so many pollutants that we have out there, and we've allowed these big pharma companies or these big conglomerate companies to just put filler and all kinds of garbage in our products and our food. And that has an impact on our health. And we see it with the disease rate going up. We see it with skin issues. well, if they have skin issues, then they could just give you a solution, right? So it's just an ecosystem. So like I don't trust anybody. I'll just say that. Like I don't trust all these big companies and all the labels. I think we as consumers need to be smarter. So anyways, that was a lot. I don't follow all the vegan things, but there are a lot of things that I do.
I just wanted to ask you about it because I couldn't remember that day if we had talked about it. I do appreciate though that you're taking it into the beauty realm of being vegan and cruelty free. There
Yeah.
is a gigantic market for it. There's a lot of people out there that are, really interested in it. And obviously are learning a lot more. For as much as people like to say that social media is such like the downfall of our culture, I feel
Yeah.
like in many ways it's given this opportunity for education about things that happen in the beauty industry, in the food industry that people were not aware of.
Yeah.
I myself, okay, so I live a vegan lifestyle, but prior to becoming fully vegan 8 years ago, I considered myself a vegetarian. And that meant, eating dairy and eggs and stuff like that. Cause I felt like, well, the animals are kept alive, it's better. And honestly, what I've learned, and let me tell you, I learned a lot of this through social media. The dairy industry is so much more horrific. I wish I would have cut out dairy before anything. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of a segue. I feel like as we learn stuff as
Yeah.
society and as people, that we want to make these different choices. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that there's so many entrepreneurs like you out there that are now saying we can do things differently. Because I really feel like we've almost convenienced our world into a natural disaster. Like everything
Totally.
had to be about convenience, about ease, about new, and all this. And I'm like, do we always need to buy brand new? Like I said, I plan to have this beautiful Jade applicator for the rest of my life. I don't want to have to buy anything else.
Hmm.
So it's like obviously even creating this has some kind of impact on the environment, but the impact of one product is less than the impact of me buying 50
Yeah.
products, and that's what we have to look at in the long run. That it's like it has to be less about convenience for us all the time and more about sustainability and
Yeah.
what the future is going to look like. Because if
Yeah.
we don't plan that now, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing, which is all like, plastics. If you
Yeah.
remember that line for that movie, the 60s, it's like plastics. And
Yeah.
plastics changed everything and not necessarily for the good. So
Yeah.
speaking of products and things like that, let me just ask you, like, did you do any market research with this beyond you just like discovered using a spoon was awesome for you? When you started doing your prototypes and all, did you start doing some kind of market research, or how did you like really figure out that this is what people would want, like this specific design or, this product? Where did you go for that information?
Yeah, so I tapped into my friends. So I found some, there are jade rollers and there are gua shas. They are not this design. They are not functional to like apply your stuff, right? But there are different jade type things that exist out there. And so I looked at them and I actually found something that was kind of flat that people could kind of emulate. And so I bought a bunch of them and I gave them to some of my friends and I would ask them, what their opinion was. And it was funny because actually just this like 2 days ago, I was with a girlfriend of mine and we were at this event and she goes, Jen, I've got to get two of your applicators. I said, hold on. I thought you weren't a big fan at first. And she said, I think I just didn't understand. Anyway, she was like, I've got to. I was thinking about how I put my fingers in my lotions and I'm getting my lotions all contaminated. She was like, Jen, I need your product. I said, I think that's the biggest compliment anybody's paid me yet because everybody has told me they love the product, but she was like the one person that beta tested that was like, I don't know if I could see myself using this. And I was like, okay, Jen, that's okay. Take her feedback and just take that as part of your lessons learned, right? And now she's saying that she wants one. So that was kind of a big thing for me. I was like super, it made my heart warm. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was trying it out. And then, I had different samples that came in. And so this one here, if you're watching this one actually is a one of a kind. There's none of this color that exists out there. This one's mine. And so it came in all these different colors. So then I had some samples where people could try and I started to understand. And then I put in an order. And I think I started with 1,000 or something like that. And so and I just kind of built from there. So, but it is good to understand and talk and talk and talk about your product like you're obsessed. And I get
Yeah.
super passionate and obsessed anytime I start talking about it, clearly.
Yeah, well, as myself, I will tell you, I am not an early adapter consumer. I am one of the
Mm.
people that kind of has to see stuff out there before I'll
Yeah.
even try it. I mean, I feel like I was the last person in the world, honestly, to get a mobile phone. Really, because back in the day, I'm like, I don't really need it. And then sometimes you see the product and you finally get your hands on it. You're like, oh, this does change a lot for me.
Right.
So I could see, your friend having that difference and be like, for me, I already knew that I hated sponges and I hated dipping my fingers and stuff. Like anytime somebody like had a product that it was like a pot that you put your fingers in, I was like, ew.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like I'm like an obsessive hand washer, and I'm still like, I don't want to stick my fingers in that. And then
Yeah.
even with the sponges, I felt like every time I used it, for especially like when I was using foundation, that half of my foundation would just be in the sponge. And I knew that because when I tried to wash the sponge, all the foundation's coming out. And I'm like, this is not good. So I was wondering, like, I didn't really know what I could use. And literally, because it had already been in my mind when I met you that day and walked up to your table and you were like, this is to put on your foundation and your skincare. I already knew because I had been looking for it. That's why for me it was just an immediate yes. And
Yeah.
then for other people, they'll have to like figure out how this kind of, works into their life. But
Yeah.
I can't imagine ever using anything else. And I love that. So I don't think you probably have many complaints about the product other than they have to figure out how to use it. Because there's a little bit of a learning curve. Again,
Yeah.
if you're watching the video, you'll see me pressing it on my face. But once you get it, you're like, oh, this is really great. And like I said, I keep mine in the refrigerator. I love it. So now you have this awesome company, ATA, and you're building like out your skincare line, and that's awesome. Like for you, Jen Sugermeyer, what is your definition of success?
It's impact. And I had this number years ago and I haven't really reassessed it, but when I left corporate, I started getting really clear on how many number of lives do I want to impact, and it was 5 million. And and I think that if I look at that number now, I feel like maybe that's I could do more. But that's, to me, I mean, I'm not, look, it takes a lot to try to build something there. And when you're the investor, which means you've got to come up with the money on your own, you're not asking other people, you're not giving away the business, right? It's all on me. So I work extremely hard, and there is a big vision that you have to see, and you have to understand that you might not be profitable for a long time. You might not even see any of that money come back, for a long time. You have to be okay with that. The things that really keep me going is when I hear the stories of the mother that's like, oh, it was like that 30 seconds of just stress relief that I needed in my day. Two of my kids were sick and I just was, or, oh, I had nasal congestion and I couldn't breathe for a week. I got your tool in the mail and then all of a sudden I could breathe and it just felt so good. I suffer from allergies and I deal with this all the time. And this was just such a, godsend. So those are the kind of impact that really keeps me going. So, and I think just having freedom in life is what people want. Happiness and freedom, just the ability to kind of come and go as you please. And for me, I mean, I think corporate serves a certain it serves a certain purpose, and I think that's great. For me, I do want more freedom in my life. So impact and freedom. That's
Yeah,
it.
I would have to agree with that. I am also a corporate escapee, and I didn't enjoy having an hour-long drive to an office that I was then, obligated to stand in for 8 hours, only to get in my car for an hour and drive back home. Like I felt like I had no life. And then
Yeah.
I would look at my paycheck and be like, I don't feel like my life has been significantly impacted by this amount of money to do that. So, like you, I was willing to trade some of the conveniences of what we call the steady paycheck to be like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and start my own business. And really, like you, for me, success is impact, like helping businesses. In fact,
Yeah.
I just made a personal mission statement of my own where I was going to help 100 vegan businesses to on their path to profitability within the
Mm,
next 5 years.
I love
Because
that.
yeah, because like for me, because veganism is such a big part of my life, I'm like, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I think people should make their own choices. I'm actively trying to convert the world. So I'm like, the best way I could do that is to make it seamless for other people, to make them, so that they can launch
I
these
love
products.
that.
So it's not like, oh, it's a nice if or, maybe kind of thing. It's like, oh, it's there and it's
Yeah.
within their, financial well-being of doing. It's not like, we pay like the vegan tax anymore, the girl tax, like we like to call it, and things like that.
Right.
So I totally get, like, that's why I like to ask people, like, what is your definition of success? Because in a lot of ways, we're always just taught success is $1 million. And if you don't hit that, you're not successful. And success can come in a lot of forms. Like you said, it's freedom, it's impact, and it's just knowing that you get to work on something that you really, really love. Like, I'm not a corporate zombie anymore, just staring at a computer. I get to go and live my day. And you heard me earlier talking to my dog as I was like setting up our camera situation here.
Mhm.
And I like to be able to do that. I like to be able to sit
Yeah.
there and have a moment with my dog during the day and not watch him on camera like
Yeah.
from 30 miles away as I stand in an office and he lays, in my home doing nothing. So I
Yeah.
think for me, success was to have that personal freedom to, like, be able to interact with my pets. So,
Yeah. No, I love it.
or
I
or
get it. I've
children,
got
if people
mine.
have children or spouses or whatever, it's like you should be able to do that. So I think that's important, as we go on our entrepreneur journeys, that you can hear that. And then also, people that are out there, as I call them, are conscious consumers. I want them to understand that they have impact too through their choices.
Yep.
So you don't have to just buy whatever you feel like is being like pitched, or even things that you're seeing on social media that seem like the must have, or
Yep.
what's trendy, or what celebrities are doing. You have a choice.
Yep.
And not only that, you have an obligation. So even if you see something, you're like, oh, that's what everybody's doing. It's like, be conscious. Look and
Right.
see where it's coming from. Look and see where it's made from. Look and see where it's sourced. Look and see how it impacts the people around that environment where those materials come from.
Yep.
All of our actions have impact. So for me, like I said, I try to lessen my impact with my choices. And, to me, that's success in my life and in my business and everything. So we already kind of touched on it a little bit, but let me just ask you this quick question is, so tying into that, what has been then your most satisfying moment as an entrepreneur?
Oh man. When I got the patent for this applicator, it just, whew, I, there was so much that went into it. It was just one of those moments where I just went, I'm an inventor. And not that I need a piece of paper to tell me I'm an inventor, because I invented this long before that happened, right? But I think for me that just that was one moment throughout this journey that felt really good. I mentioned what keeps me going day to day. I like those feel good stories. If I'm looking at the things that I've built, but um watching this thing come to life too, and it's about to really take to the next level. There's a lot of things that are happening. I worked 14 and a half hours on Saturday. I closed my laptop at 12:30 in the morning. I mean, it's so there is a huge push right now for this next wave of skincare and the things that are coming. It's really unbelievable. But watching it all come together and come to life, and getting recognized for certain things, I'm like, wow, it's like a little child. You just watch it grow, and it's taking its, like people are using this to put tattoo balm on. And I'm like, good for you. Like anything that you use your fingers to put in something that's liquid based, you can use this. And it's taking on its own little life. And I love it. It's like a little child. So all those are real good, feel good things for me.
Well, we're definitely adding that to your bio, that Jen Sugermeyer inventor. I do love that. And that you have the patent on this. I mean, listen, that's huge. You're right. When you have that piece of paper, sometimes you're just like, wow, I'm like in history now. Like, it's
Yeah.
beyond your product. You're actually in like history books now as
Yeah.
an inventor. And that's so
Yeah.
cool. It's that creation process that really lights us up and gives us so much, in our lives, that feeling
Mhm.
of accomplishment, which is really important, that feeling of purpose.
Yeah.
I was actually looking up the other day for a different interview. I wanted to have a good definition of what is happy, or what makes a person happy.
Mhm.
And one of the things that came up over and over was a sense of purpose.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, I went on a date one time with this guy, and he had all this money, I guess. And I should have vetted this date before I went on it. But anyways, I said, so what do you do? And he said, oh, nothing. I have, I'm a trust fund. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, do you have any hobbies? Do you have anything? And he said, well, I have two. I try to get out of bed every day, and I try not to spend all my money. That was like the end of the date. Like, This guy was miserable in his life. So that just shows you. I mean, I was in my early 20s, but or maybe 30s, I don't know. But I was like, I was so unattracted to somebody who has no purpose, no vision, no goals, no nothing. And it didn't matter how much money he had. He came from cigarette money. He could have been from the Marlboro family for all I know. I was so turned off. But um, it just money is not going to buy you happiness. Having that connection to yourself that you want to, have your feet hit the ground so that you can make that impact or do that thing or build that thing or whatever that is for you. Raise children. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go be an inventor. Like go be a good human, go be kind to people if that's your purpose, like whatever it is, like it just fuels you. And when you don't have that, it's very evident. It absolutely will impact your happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. That God, what a statement just to get out of bed in the morning. I
I was
mean,
like,
I, and
pass.
really, how many stories have we seen that people who win like large lottery winnings, how within a year, first of all, the money's usually gone and their life has taken a turn for a disaster because
Yeah.
taking the money out of the issue, sometimes people think like if I just had more money, everything falls into place, and it doesn't. You really do have to have that reason to get out of bed, whatever that's going to be for you. And to make that, your purpose, like your joy of getting up. I asked my sister years ago, actually, because I was having a moment in my life or my business or something. And I needed a pep talk. My sister's amazing. She gives me these great pep talks. And she just said to me, you know what? Sometimes I'm just really looking to getting up and having my first cup of coffee.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh my God, that's great. Like I was like, and there's no like belittling that in any way. She's like, I just really wake up thinking about that first cup of coffee and how much I'm going to enjoy it. I'm like, yes.
yeah,
And
I
that
get
was
it.
like the thing. And I was like, she's right. And now every single time I get up and I think about my coffee, I think about my sister. And I'm like,
Mm,
she's right. It's so fun to look forward to your first cup of
yeah,
coffee and
for
how much
sure.
you're going to enjoy that. So, I mean, yeah, she was right with that. So let me just ask you one final question here, Jen, because we've talked so long, but I love it. I could talk to you for hours. Just everything we've talked about. You're so inspiring and everything. Just share a little win with us that you've had in the last 90 days. And it could be anything. It could be business, personal, whatever, but give us a win. Share us a win for us.
So this may sound completely basic, but we just finalized today actually the branding for ATTA Cosmetics, which sounds crazy. This is like building business 101. But I was like, if it looks good, just go with it, right? But I've just launched with an ads company a couple of months ago, and a lot of these things have come to head about how when you're in front of people, when your content's in front of people, they need to be able to understand what company it is without even seeing your logo.
Mm.
And I know this sounds really basic, but this has not been my focus. And now it has been. And I tell you what, I am so excited about what's coming with the skincare and the branding. This has been a massive, massive just effort to get this moving. So there's going to be a lot of changes, but I feel like once those colors and the fonts and all that was nailed down, I was like, oh, yes. It just was one of those, yes, because it's been a lot of work. So, and who knew? Who knew? I thought that was the easy part. It's not. There's a lot of things.
Well, you
So
know what? I,
that's
I
a
think
win.
it's fine that that came later in your journey because sometimes I feel like businesses spend just so much time on the branding and the color scheme and all that they really, by the time you get to the product, you're like, your product is not differentiating in any way. Like
Right.
you just literally took a vowel out of your word because that became so popular in the tech space too and the online entrepreneur space. It's like you just picked a common word, removed all the vowels, and that was your company name. It's like that's
Yeah.
not branding.
Yeah.
Removing a vowel is not branding.
Yes.
But a lot of people did that. So I think it's fine. I support you that that came later because, like I said, again, if you're watching the video, I've literally been touching my face with this applicator the entire time. I love it so much. Jen, let me tell you something. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and meet you. I'm going to say right now, you are going to be my BFF for the rest of my life. I
I'm
want to
here
hang
for
out with you
that.
at some point. Like, I wish I had more time to hang out with you that day at the summit. Everything just whirled by. In fact, everyone I've talked to is like, we wish the Women's Vegan Summit was 3 days long
Oh
because it
yeah.
wasn't enough time. And
Yeah.
and Jenny out there, Jenny, who the creator of the Vegan Women's Summit, I hope you're listening, and I hope number one, you're going to be on my podcast soon, and number two, you make it a multi-day summit because we really, really got so much out of it, and I think we're
Yeah.
building a lot of networking through it. That's going to be awesome for the future. So, Jen, that's
Absolutely.
it. Thanks so much for
Thank
being on
you.
the podcast. I
Yes,
really
thanks for
appreciate it.
having
You sharing
me.
your story and talking with us. And just so everyone can run out and see what all the buzz is about with this amazing Jade applicator, tell everybody who is listening now, and I will put this in the show notes, where they can find you and how to talk to you about this product.
Yeah, so ATTA Cosmetics, and ATTA stands for attitude, thoughts, and actions. And those are the three things that you control. And when you learn to focus on those, you get in the driver's seat of your life. So it is attacosmetics.com. You can go to Instagram. TikTok has a lot of really great videos. I got to be honest, I have not figured out how to get that beast going. People are like, just go on TikTok, you blow up. Like, I don't know. It hasn't been my experience, but there's a lot of great videos out there. So ATTA Cosmetics or ATTA.cosmetics, ATA Cosmetics .com is the website. So yeah, how you
That's
find us.
awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks for being on the podcast. And yeah, everyone go out and check out these applicators because I'm a huge convert. Like I said, when I met Jen, I couldn't wait to hand over my money. And I'm not usually like that with products because I'm pretty thrifty, but this one I knew I needed. So thank you for creating what was already in my head.
Thanks for using it. Appreciate you believing me.
Thanks for listening to the Wild Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.